All right, guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And welcome to episode 13 of the Breaking Point podcast. And this is a banger. We've got Lionman back in the building. Unbelievable week of Call of Duty that we have just had. So many storylines at the major. We're doing this a little bit later than usual, and it's honestly a good thing that we are because so much happened this past 24 hours. The LAN return announcement that we had from the CDL just a couple of hours ago, and also the chaos of rostermania that is going down after stage 2. Before we begin, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the wonderful listeners that we have over at Spotify. There's about 200 of you guys listening week in, week out. We appreciate every single one of you. Don't forget to hit the follow button as well if you haven't already. It's on the main Breaking Point page on the mobile part, and it really does help us out. Let's get into things then, guys. So, Austin, Lion, I mean, what a week we've just had. How are you feeling, Austin? Obviously, congratulations to the defeat this past weekend. It was a tough one. Made it to the grand finals once again, but Toronto came out incredible, as I'm sure we're going to touch on in some depth today.
Yeah, not doing bad. Could be worse, At least we got second, but at least it wasn't champs. So just getting back to the grind already.
Lion, how are we going? Back on the show, baby.
Mate, I'm good. Been working. It's been fun. It's actually been really good the last week. Watching the matches as well. Sorry, it was a tough final for you, Austin, but mate, next one.
Absolute banger matches, man. Like every series, some of them early on were a little bit one-sided, but then we really got into the heat of things, and there were so many moments this past weekend that just make you think, wow, like if we were on LAN. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's dive into things. So I think we should just go on a team-by-team basis, as we tend to do. We'll start with the Ravens, right? Because they go out in... Actually, maybe let's not start with the Ravens. Let's just go first round elimination and discuss Los Angeles Guerrillas, because that was the first matchup. Mutineers, LAG, or at least on the first day here, on the upper side of the winner's side. And yeah, so LAG go out 3-0, get kind of smoked here by Florida. What do we think about what this team should do? Because we haven't heard, at least as of recording, roster changes going down with this team. But you've got to think that despite their victory against FaZe that they had at the latter half of stage 2, where, okay, you're thinking, wow, this team could do something special. They come into the major, they come out flat, they got bopped out of the tournament. And with pretty much all the other teams that are down there in that bracket of like bottom tier teams are making changes, especially we look at the standings as well, Austin, where they're sitting right now. Okay, they're actually in 8th. So they have a bit of a buffer, a 10-point buffer over the Mutineers, for that top 8 placing for champs. But it feels to me that if they don't make something change now, I can't see them staying in the top 8 by the time it comes to seeding for champs.
Yeah, they're in a really weird spot because they're kind of performing just good enough to not be like pressure to do a roster change, but they're also not strong enough to where you see them consistently placing well. So it's going to be a tough, I think this is probably going to be like the final stage where they're going to see what they have and reevaluate after this one. So this will be a tough stage for them because they'll have to definitely rebound, find some form, and prove that they can be a threat in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, I honestly think that it was that win over you guys, FaZe, that actually kept them together. Because their stage, or their major finals, they got 3-0'd bad, and it just doesn't look good for them. So who really knows? I think this team has potential. We've seen it in World War II when they won champs, but it's if things don't work, they're going to have to start picking up rookies just like the other teams, because it seems to be the best method to win at the moment. Just like LA Thieves going... Oh, go ahead.
Well, the problem with that is if they wait too long, what rookies are left for them to pick up?
Yeah.
So everyone's trying to snatch right now, Mm-hmm. It's happening quick because you got Vivid. He's been very promising. Silly actually had a phenomenal finish to the stage. But then you're like, well, even with Silly performing really well, they still can't put a single series together, single map together when they actually come to the major. So, yeah, I can't see this team being the same at the end of stage 3 or at least at the start of stage 4. So, and if no final thoughts, we can just move on because there's so much to get into.
There's nothing really to add with them, mate. It's just kind of hard to watch.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, there's other teams in a similar boat, to be honest. And let's talk about the Ravens next, just because I think that, yes, they were in round 2 elimination, but they in kind of a similar position where they had a decent run of things where they first make this change. Paulix comes in, Zed comes in, Zed and Dylan looking like a very solid SMG duo. And then they fall off a bit after maybe the honeymoon period kind of goes away. And now they face clearly a very hot Los Angeles Thieves here down in the losers, but they do get reverse swept. And they're now out of the tournament as well. And they find themselves in last place right now in the CDL with only 30 points. So the problem is if you're London, right, like you've already made so many changes. I don't even know what you do anymore if you are going to make changes. I imagine they'll probably stick, but it's in the same position really as LAG, that if they do stick, can I see them finding their way to top 8 at the end of the season, Austin? Like, I'm not really sure I can. It pains me to say.
I think they're in a more trickier spot than LAG, just because London will have the fan base behind them, pressuring them to pick up like English and European players. So whereas LAG right now can just go pick up any NA amateurs and they would do fine and no one really be pressuring them. So if you're London, I think you're pretty much forced to stick as a unit for right now and wait it out, unless they can like kind of splash and get like a big name that's on a bench, like a Major Maniac or a Slasher or something of that effect. If you can't do that, then I think you just stick, you ride it out, you see if you can get better performance out of Dylan, more consistent with Zed. The Zed and Dylan duo. So, because they definitely had some bright spots as a unit. I think they're still have some weaknesses that they're working on, but they definitely have some potential to be in the top 8 for the later half.
Yeah, they came in, and when they made that change with Paulix, they actually looked really good at the start, winning those 2 matches against LAG and LA Thieves. So they beat LA, and that was it. Then they came into the major and just got, who'd they lose to?
They lost to Thieves in the losers in their only matchup, because I remember they got bodied by FaZe right in that final match, which kind of felt bad for them for, but it's what it is.
Oh, that must have been the dagger though. They got smoked.
I mean, yeah, Dylan went 13 and 34 back one. Like, that was a rough one, you know.
Oof.
So, and then they come in here. I mean, the reverse sweep here as well was just like, I think they're 0-5 in game 5s this season, London. So they've gone game 5 with a lot of teams. And I remember they went game 5 with Dallas in stage 1, I think, when Parasite was on the team. And they had some good tournament or good matches. They go game 5, and then every time it falls through without fail. Like, I'm never confident this team will get game 5, which is, well, it's a massive problem. So it's costed them a lot, you know, to be honest.
Well, Paul looked good for the most part, is the point. So maybe he's the player that they try to build around, but he's not British. So is that a problem?
Exactly, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You just need... If Zero and Afro could get out there, like this team, you know, I don't know. I really think they could be a contender, yeah. So that's probably they just have to just say, all right, chalk this year and just wait until the guys can get out there. But because you can't really make more... I don't know what more changes you make. I think you just give it a go. Because Seattle improved with the same lineup they had since the start of the season. They're getting better. They're looking solid. So maybe London could do it. It's just they need to win a game 5, man.
Yeah, so I was going to add, it must be really painful for them to be looking at Toronto Ultra, the better EU team at the moment.
That's crazy to think about, right?
Absolutely rough.
The best EU team in the world by far
is Canadian.
Is Canadian, yeah. Love franchiser, baby. But yeah, that's a great shout. And I guess talking about European teams, Paris Legion, right? So they come in here, they get 3-0 bopped by Thieves first round, and we will get into Thieves in a second. But obviously not what they were looking for. Fire had a pretty rough series right here. We've had the discussion, right? I'm pretty sure everyone was like, if there was a piece to be changed, Fire is the easiest candidate. And they do make the move. Fire goes out, Temp is in. And this is, I really kind of like this change. I think that it's maybe slightly strange. I think maybe they'll have some questions about what roles they want to run, because Scraps could still be on the second AR, or Temp could also run that, I think, certainly, if Scraps is fancying the SMG a bit more. But I think, I mean, Temp has played in the past with Aqua as well a couple of times. He's played with Classic as well to some decent success back in Advanced Warfare, for example. So I can see it making sense. I think they've probably got more consistent slaying power now, and all the other members on that team are very individually skilled and have a lot of talent within the cohesion that they bring to the squad as well. So I actually think that Paris, even with Fire, they looked scary at times early on in this season. And I think this Temp change makes them something of a dark horse, like a team you really don't want to be facing. But it's once again, I think it does come down to the chemistry thing and whether this team actually meshes and works well. This is kind of Temp's opportunity to prove that he can be part of a team that actually does, because he got dropped from Thieves and it's like, all right, maybe he was the problem, but then Slasher gets dropped and they actually then improve. So maybe he can, maybe it wasn't his fault, but this is his chance to prove, I think, Lion, that he can make a team that actually can contend.
Yeah, I don't know if this actually makes the biggest difference. We'll obviously have to wait and see. But Temp early in the year on Thieves was good-ish, but he was definitely quite satisfactory in certain areas. And so I'm not sure if he's playing at the same level he was on Thieves, if that's going to be much better than it was with Fire. So he's going to need to perform like he did in Black Ops 4 or be that player that he can be if they really want to become a contender, because otherwise it's just going to be pretty much the same story, I feel. He's going to have to go off, or the team is just going to have to find some cohesion within that new fourth to really, take it to the top teams.
Yeah, luckily they have, I think, 3 players who can flex, because even Classic, a lot of people don't know, he used to flex back in the day. Maddie can obviously flex. Yeah. And Donnie can flex. So it's very good when you have a lot of versatile players like that, because if it doesn't work out with, let's say, Donnie and Classic on the SMGs, they can kind of play around with it a little bit more, see if Maddie's better as that, or maybe just Maddie and Temp with Classic on the flex. That'd be interesting. But they can definitely play around. They have a whole stage. They're probably going to play around this stage and try a couple different compositions, see what they like, and I think it's a good move. They're going to find a lot of consistency with Temp. More so than what they were getting with Fire. I think Temp's really, really good especially with an AR. I'm hoping he goes back to an AR eventually. I know right now he kind of wants to run that SMG. So we'll see. I think this is a good move long term for them.
Yeah, I think they're just going to have to improve quite a lot, right? Because all the other teams in the league are either improving rapidly or are already incredibly good, or they're making changes to try and improve. And that's pretty much the case across the board. And we've got another team, for example, the Florida Mutineers right here, in a similar position to Paris, really, if you look at the CDL standings. So Paris in 10th right now on 50 points, Florida in 9th right now on 60 points, which is, it doesn't look too hot compared to Atlanta FaZe's 225 by comparison. But so Mutineers, they 3-0 LAG first round. They then lose 3-1 to the Seattle Surge in losers round 2. And kind of surprising in the sense that this Mutineers team going into the season, I thought could really be one of the dark horses that, people didn't really talk about them too much last year, even though they won like 3 events. And now this season, Awakening's there. We've got Skies, obviously phenomenal. Neptune now into the lineup. Slacked, of course, comes in for Pharaoh, unfortunately. So, it is what it is. But Slack's the one who finds his way out of this team now onto the bench, and they're trialing other players. And I'm not sure personally if this actually really fixes their issues. We've seen other one-person changes work, and we saw the Maniac for Standy one work phenomenally, but of course that was a role thing, whereas this is like, Blacked, honestly, I think has kind of been doing his job on the SMG, but clearly the team needed a change, and there's no one else that you can realistically scapegoat but Slacked, because you don't want to get rid of Neptune, your up-and-comer. I'm sure Ogre 2's in love with him as a Halo player as well, and then Skies and Awakening are effectively your 2 superstars. So if you want to make a change, this is probably the one you had to make, Austin. But at the same time, if they bring in Havoc, they bring in Decimate, if you're still not getting incredible production from, Skies and Awakening consistently, I'm not sure this necessarily catapults them up the ladder.
Yeah, so I think this move is kind of more towards they wanted a faster SMG, because their 2 ARs are kind of not on the slower end, but they have 2 basically ARs that are on the same pacing. So they wanted somebody to stick around with Neptune maybe. So Neptune has more of an SMG partner in the front line. And I don't think Slack did anything wrong per se, but I just don't think he was putting up the flashiest stats, which isn't a bad thing. But was he doing enough of the lurking role, doing enough of the intangibles? Clearly the team wanted to go a different route, so makes you kind of question that. But whoever they get, if they do get, Decimate or Havoc or someone, I'm interested to see how the pacing goes between the 2 SMGs and the 2 ARs, whether there's a disconnect between those two, kind of what you see sometimes on Seattle, or if there's going to be kind of like everyone as a unit has like a good pacing together. So it'll definitely be evident in the respawns. So it'll be something to watch for in the first week or two.
I mean, they definitely needed a change because Awakening has been playing ridiculous, especially in stage 1. And so to not have a full roster of players that are all on a similar level, it felt like they were kind of, or he was being kind of held back. Now, you mentioned Decimate coming in for Slack potentially. That might not be happening now because Method, Slack, Decimate, and Dav Paddy. Who's that? Do you know who he is?
Paddy, yeah.
He's
been
a really
doing
good
decent
AR.
things in the challenger side.
Okay, I've literally never heard of him, and I know that's probably really ignorant, but their team for
I've just seen
challengers.
that tweet,
Yeah.
And
He
Go.
led a lot of the categories for Elite 2 for the stats.
Wow.
He was like, he had the highest overall. He put up a 1.25, I believe. He had the highest hard point and control KDs. He's like your typical main AR that kind of sits in the back line.
Yeah. All right.
So
they've got two of them. They've got Methods and Dav.
I think
and
what
then
they'll probably
Slack
do
and Jesse.
is they'll probably make Methods kind of more of the faster AR role and then put Dav in the back.
Yes, that's a testament to Dav's playstyle. But yeah.
We'll see how it
that's
goes.
saying something.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lion. I think someone had to give, and they find themselves in a spot now where they're making changes, and they lost to a Seattle team here that, I mean, we can touch on now if there's nothing necessarily to add on the Florida team, because there's still a hell of a lot to get through. We got this Seattle squad that improved so much from stage 1 to stage 2. I did wonder if a team change would be necessary to make this lineup work. But here we are with Octane still not being phenomenal by any means. I mean, he's been like very much run-of-the-mill main assault rifle, but it's been Looney doing his job. And then it's been Gunless and Bristini, Big P and Little P having monstrous pop-off series when they do go off. Especially Pristini, I've been incredibly impressed with because he's been the player that coming into the season was like, all right, he's got to prove that he can be a Slayer, heavy Slayer SMG if this team wants to compete. And when he has a great series, which he has quite often now, they actually look like they can contend. And when he's been playing well, they're obviously in a great position. And Gunless is also phenomenal. I mean, he was using the 74 Utigrade effect as well when he was pulling that one out. So when they're on form, very scary. I still am kind of concerned about the long-term consistency of this team. And of course, even despite the great stage that they had, they still find themselves like top 8 here, right? Like it's talking about how much they improved. And at the end of the day, they've come top 8, losing 3-1 to OpTic Chicago after beating Mutineers 3-1 themselves in the previous round. And Surge sit themselves right now in the standings in 11th place on 50 points. So it's like, for all the improvements we discussed, it's got to manifest into reality, Austin.
Yeah, I think they'll continue to climb up the ladder. I think they're a really great like gatekeeping team for the top 8. I feel like they're definitely going to make the major at the end of the year. I feel like they're probably going to be in that 8 or 7 range. They'll be like one of those teams where if they'll beat the lower teams and then they'll contest against the higher up teams, but they'll get up there. I have faith. I think Preston and Pierce, Gunless and Prestini are really, really good. They're both playing lights out in stage 2. I'm really interested to see if they'll continue that in stage 3, and if the other if Octane can reach those MVP numbers he had for the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's really one of the biggest issues right now is that Octane isn't putting up those numbers that he's known for. But in my opinion, I think this team would be one of the teams that really benefits from LAN more so than any other, just because of the experience and the championships they have on that team. And so they aren't one of those teams that have one of those new rookies that don't really know how it feels on LAN. So maybe when it comes around, they beat those teams where there's a bit of an experience there. So who knows? We could see them come up and totally dominate on LAN out of nowhere because it's such a stacked roster, regardless of how well they've been playing this year. On LAN, they might be a completely different team. So we'll have to wait and see.
I think that's a great shout for sure. I think before we get into the next team, I think it was an interesting point you raised about Octane not necessarily performing with the AR, because how many main assault rifles are there in the league right now that are actually putting up crazy numbers? I don't really know the stats. Maybe you can find them, Austin, and what the stats are for a lot of the main assault rifles. But I saw some discussion on Reddit, like, who's the best main AR in the game? And it's not so easy to say, right? People were saying like Insight, people were saying Aqua, and I'm like, well, they're not the first two that come to my mind, but at the same time, in terms of performances, you can certainly make a good case, right? Like, I think Formal statistically has been pretty good, but OpTic tend to be a team that does statistically pretty well, but maybe it doesn't convert into results always. We can get into that. And it just seems like this year, to me, it's not actually the main ARs that are putting up the numbers, right? It really is your SMG guys that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting right here. And that's why you tend to see the teams that are successful be the ones with either incredibly good SMG duos or SMG duos that can turn into absolute monsters on their given day, as we'll talk about with Toronto here in a second. So would you take your take on that, Austin? Like, I guess, who do you think is the best main AR in the game? Do you think, how much of an important role do you think it is this year?
So my take on it is I kind of lump together flexes and ARs right now because a lot of the flexes are just more of they put you in the more of the superstar roles, superstar positions, like the power spots, and the main AR is kind of just holding down the back line, holding lanes down. So almost every single team, if you look at it, like their main AR is usually lower engagements, hovering around like a 1.05, and then you usually have a flex who is kind of like the make or break for who's putting up like high digits. So like on our team, you have like MC, and on Chicago you have Dashy. On Florida, for instance, you have Awakening. So I think this team is tough because when you look at Pierce, when you look at Gunless and you look at Octane, who's putting up those superstar numbers, and they're actually both neck and neck with a 1.06 right now. They're both, if you look at it, their Slayer rating is kind of Gunless is middle of the pack, and Octane is very low, which means he's slower pace, and Octane's Gunless is a little bit faster. So that's where I'm like a little concerned. Like one of those guys has to kind of like elevate themselves to like that next level, and it takes pressure off one another. So if Octane hits that next notch up or Gunless, then they'll definitely be in a better place.
I think that's a
Oh
fair
yeah,
point.
you want me to?
If you want to line, yeah.
I don't really have much to add. I just feel like it's been different to other years where the AR has been the dominant weapon, especially in Modern Warfare, where it was like expected to have a 1.2 minimum. And so it's possible that in itself had raised the stock in a lot of AR players, even though they weren't performing that much better per se. And so, I don't know, like Octane was definitely one of the players that benefit from the AR last year. And in BO4, the ICR was something different, just shoot lasers. But this year it's not the case. Yeah. Bro, I miss that gun. I used to use it in league play all the time, just the ICR and just hold corners, bro. Or
So
like
good,
shoulders.
man. Double grip. Oof. Basically, still. But yeah. It's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever an assault rifle player whenever like a main AR has a great map, I'm always surprised. Like last year, Octane could go 35 in 21 on Azure Cave, and I'd be like, this is a standard procedure. And, the map would still be 250, 230. But this year, it's like, if Aqua goes 35 in 21 on Checkmate Hardpoint, then it's like, wow, that's actually insane. I think Kenny had a map very similar to that as well. So it's interesting to see, like, I kind of expect more of those crazy maps to come from the SMG players this year, whereas last year it was ARs, but that kind of just is how it goes. Probably 4v4 has had some impact on that as well. Let's talk about the next team who went out of the tournament, that being the New York Subliners. Now, I came into this weekend expecting this team, not expecting because I knew it was going to be incredibly competitive, but I thought they were a reasonable candidate, I thought, to make it all the way to the grand finals here. I thought they had the ice in the game fives, but they're going to get to a game five. They did lose to, Thieves, it says on this bracket here 3-2, but I'm pretty sure they got 3-0, didn't they? I think this bracket for the CDL is wrong.
Yep.
So they got 3-0 by the Subliners, and then they got 3-0 by Thieves. Again, they go down to losers. I mean, wow. Wasn't expecting it. It's obviously not the result they were looking for, and they seem to be deciding to make a change here. Clayster was talking afterwards about the fact that he was thinking about maybe taking some time off, had a difficult time, of course, here. He is another assault rifle who's been pretty good so far this season, honestly, but these last couple of weeks, he really hasn't been putting up great numbers, which may be a sign of internal team dynamics falling apart, because Clayster tends to be a guy that when his team is like, when everything's going well for his team, he's loving life and he's frying. But when things start to fall, he lives off emotions, right? So it seems like they might be making a change with, rumor has it at least from Crone, the latest update we had last night was Mac. Initially, it was Mac out, Hydra in from the bench. Then we had potential rumors that it would be Mac out plus DiamondCon out. In comes Hydra and maybe even Sib from the FaZe Academy. But, I'm sure there's contract stuff to work out there. So, I mean, the fact that they didn't win a map here made their decision quite easy, I think, to give this a go, Austin. I think Hydra's a no-brainer, but at the same time, there are questions as to how quickly they can integrate him into the system. Is comms going to be an issue? That's been what people have just been discussing. So, but I mean, honestly, so much to say on this team. I don't know where to begin.
Yeah, the rumored move of Hydra going in, that's definitely an interesting one for me, just because I'm really, really interested to see how long it takes him to adapt to the pro level. I think it will eventually click and he'll be like one of those all-star level players. But I heard like Saints talk about one of his like when they were doing call-outs one time and he like misunderstood a call-out and was calling out mid, but Hydra said vent. He just kept saying vent. So I think it one kinks because learning call-outs and learning how to like be a part of that team on this stage, I think it will take just a couple weeks to get into it, and he'll be one of those great players in the league. So I'm actually really excited to see him in. But it's kind of tough seeing New York after just one bad. I guess it's a major, but having a bad major, just making such a drastic change, if they do that, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, they had 2 bad series and everything fell apart. And it's unfortunate because at the start of the game, they looked like maybe the second best team in the game and potential to be the best. But they also got knocked out on a triple checkmate versus LA Thieves, which is absolutely horrible. Imagine being stuck and getting smoked for 35 minutes on checkmate.
They love checkmate, though. That's the thing. Like, the fact that they lose that, I don't know.
Their bread and butter.
Yeah, exactly. That like, I know it's not great for the viewer, but at the same time, if you're New York getting bodied on checkmate, that's probably a sign that enough's enough for this team, right? Given that's really been their go-to.
Yeah. And if I don't know, I just don't know if it's the perfect time to make a change, especially with the possibility of LAN and having 2 rookies on LAN. Who knows?
Well,
I say
Mac,
who knows
actually,
who
Mac
does
and Diamond haven't played on LAN either.
Oh no,
So.
Actually you're right.
Yeah,
Mac
so
played
it's not
like
even
once at the start.
Mac has, but amateur.
Yeah, like hybrid black, right? At the Minnesota home series open thing, but Diamond kind of has, and I don't think
that's
crazy locals. But
it's been over a year since the last LAN. Feels like longer.
Feels so long.
Yeah, it does. I was looking back at some pictures, just reminiscing, really. But we'll be there in due course. We'll get into that.
Bro, I was at the 3rd to 4th to last LAN, and that was almost 2 years ago.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's insane to think about. Yeah. Wow, like August 2019 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's crazy scenes. I mean, and just to finish up on this New York team then, because the question has been, all right, like, let's discard the Sib thing for a second, whether that is or is not the case. But Hydra coming in off the bench for one of Mac or DiamondCon, there's been questions as to, because initially the discussion was, okay, it's Mac out, Hydra in. And it's tough to say because both of those guys have been good. I think Asim has been phenomenal, and clearly he's one of the key pieces in terms of like intangibles and such that he brings to the team. In addition to, like, him and Clayster seem to be a very vibey duo, and I think you need someone like that on the team in addition to Clayster to kind of keep him level-headed in that sense. So you've got that part of it, which, I mean, Asim has also been phenomenal statistically and in terms of his impact. So I think he 100% deserves to keep a spot on the team. But then you've got Mac, who was unbelievable last year and has shown glimpses of brilliance again this year, and on occasion has put up some great numbers. And then you've got DiamondCon, who's been in their kind of flex role, who has been, he's put up some solid numbers as well and looks really good. So it's just a tough call. Like, who do you replace? I mean, if you're going to make a change, this seems like the way to go. But there's been some questions. Okay, Hydra out, Mac in, or the other way around, Mac out, Hydra in. Is that the one who should have gone? Given that Hydra has kind of proven, Austin, that he seems to run anything because he's been doing it in the challenges lately with the AR when needed, and also with the sub.
Yeah, I mean, I almost would rather have Hydra on. This is going to sound weird. I'd almost rather have him on the flex in the pro level. I think he's I think it will be easier for him to adapt to the pro level running that, which sounds really weird, and will put less pressure on him if he has like a bad game. So I honestly wouldn't mind seeing him as a flex at some point, but right now he'll come in as an SMG probably and do pretty well. I think. I think if you're gonna make the move, you're gonna have to find someone who plays at the same pace as ASIM, plays like his kind of Call of Duty. So it was gonna have to be someone that was kind of on the faster side. So I like them. I like it if they do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on how I think the team will work because I assumed that the original New York Subliners, or I guess the current New York Subliners, was just going to be a complete mess, and they ended up being one of the best teams in the game. So with this game, I'm just kind of seeing how it goes. Not really giving up two cents as much.
I don't think you can predict too much with the league right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
And we'll see that when we get into the latter half of the weekend. So continuing on in the losers bracket, we then find ourselves the Los Angeles Thieves here. They finish top 6 in an unbelievable turnaround. They make a change right before the major. Slasher comes out, Draza comes in, and in these first few series, they looked phenomenal when they caught fire. I mean, they 3-0'd Legion, they 3-2'd Ravens with the reverse sweep on maps they were very comfortable with, 3-4-5. They beat the Subliners very comfortably. They end up getting, not exactly smoked, but kind of smoked by Toronto Ultra, and we soon found out to you how good they turned out to be. But Thieves looking incredibly much improved right here. That's not even a way to phrase things, but I'll just go with it anyway, because the thing with this team was I don't think I saw them play a single series so far this season where they actually looked like they were having a good time when Slasher was on the team. And it just feels to me that when things go south for this type of squad with Slasher at the helm, it's just going to spiral out of control. No one's having a good time. And I understood the idea, right? Like, it's time for Slasher to step aside for a bit, at least while we remain online, and bring in Draza, who probably should have got his spot sooner anyway, I would say. And comes in here, and I think the first series, Draza had like a 1.7 or something stupid. Kenny looked great on the main AR. There's been a lot of discussion, okay, can Kenny run it, whatever, but proved that he kind of can. And all the pieces were going well. The very impressive thing to me was, especially in these couple of series that they won, was that Venom really had some standout showings, and we didn't see that under Slasher, right? Like on the Slasher team, Venom was very underwhelming, but Venom really had some turn-up series here. So all things considered, this team looks a lot better. Is this a long-term solution? I'm still not sure. Like, is Kenny going to be running the main AR on this team in a year's time? I'm not necessarily convinced. But they looked a lot better here, and immediately they looked like contenders to, be taking down some of the best teams in the game, Austin. And that's pretty scary given the amount of other teams that are looking really good right now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, a lot of people didn't think removing Slasher was the right move. He had the 5th lowest KD in the entire league for an AR or a flex player. He had a 0.96, which is tied with accuracy. And, he was underperforming. He was underperforming for this team. You could see the vibes for the team were horrible. You could just see that in their face cams when they were playing. It looked like they were at a funeral. It was very depressing watching the face cams. I just can't imagine how the comms would have been with that. But as soon as he gets removed, it's like Kenny starts playing at like another level. You get Draws in there who, even though he wasn't getting a lot of engagements, he was like doing the job he needed to do on the flex position. And what I really liked out of it was the resurgence of TJ and Venom, who went from the lowest 2 KDs in the league and kind of catapulted themselves up. Venom ended the stage with a 0.93, but he had a 1.04 at the major, and TJ had a 1.0 in the major. So that was both really great improvements. They definitely performed at a level where I would like to see them, continue this into stage 3 with their small ball lineup, as Cap likes to call it.
That's actually a good way to put it. Yeah, I think they looked improved, and they looked definitely better than they did throughout Stage 1. Even though in Stage 1 they had a good record, it seemed quite inflated by like some strange wins. I don't know, it just didn't feel very convincing. In this stage, when they won matches, especially in the major, it did look convincing. I'm just not too certain, like you said before, if this is a permanent situation, especially with roles. But especially like players like Draza looked amazing coming in, 2nd time in the league. Really showing that he deserved to stay. Venom not too certain about him yet. I do think he's a great player, but he's had some inconsistencies so far. Kenny, how do you think Kenny's doing on the main AR? Because to me, I'm not too sure about it.
He has a 1.11 for the at the major. It's almost like he was still the faster of the two ARs. I thought Draza was kind of definitely on the slower end, so he was taking more like the back seat. So it gave Kenny less pressure to do like the fundamentals 100% correct and more of just play his game and just have fun. So I need to see it for more than just one weekend. So if he can do that in stage 3 and still compete, because I don't know the groups yet, but if he can compete with teams that have prominent two ARs and still win those battles, then it will actually be really interesting to see how they go throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Kenny was great on the Krieg. I'm slightly concerned about he doesn't necessarily fit the main AR mold in the sense that I saw him in a lot of positions where I'm like, a main AR in a normal team wouldn't be playing from there. He was playing for spots where like your more aggressive player would play YYing all over the place. And you should kind of worry that, okay, maybe he's not holding down the spawns in, that a traditional AR that's played it for years might do in that sense. So maybe that will come back to bite them against some of the real big dogs they haven't really played yet. But I guess one of them that they have played, you could argue, is now Toronto Ultra. We'll get onto that team in a second. Let's talk about the other team that went out top 6, that being OpTic Chicago, in one of the more unbelievable fashions that we've ever seen. I mean, they lose to Ultra 3-1. It's like, wow, Ultra came out with the fire. OpTic find themselves in losers, going to have an incredibly tough time to make it through. But, maybe just one of these series that OpTic didn't really come out. As it turned out, right, Ultra actually incredibly good. But they go down to losers. They beat Seattle. Then they play Rokkr. And man, this was just Rokkr the day before. We could talk about their match against Empire in a second as well. But this game against OpTic Chicago was one of the more unbelievable ones I've ever seen. An unbelievably back and forth affair. It goes, game 1, Rokkr win or whatever. Chicago take the search. Rokkr win the control. OpTic take the hard point, and then we go to a Moscow search where it goes up 5-3 in favor of Rokkr. And this is the thing with OpTic, man. Like, if this had been FaZe up 5-3 against OpTic, I'd have said they closed it out the OpTic were up 5-3, right? If it would have been FaZe up 5-3 against Rokkr, I'd have said, okay, FaZe are probably going to close this out like 80% of the time or something. But when OpTic are in these positions, it just feels like that they're due to just bottle it somehow. And it's just like they lose 2 rounds. Maybe I think one of them, Dashi got the first blood. They're up 5-3. Dashi gets first blood on offense. They can't convert. They lose the next round as well. And then we go to this insane round 11 where, I'm sure I'll throw it to you to discuss it in a second, Austin, but what is even going on? They get the 2 first kills. Envoy's flying out outskirts and dies. And then, you could probably talk for hours on how differently they should have played that 1 versus 3. But a lot of people saying, okay, it's just pure luck. The lineup's pure luck. But just briefly wanted to give some credit to accuracy because I think there are some players, probably a lot of players, that wouldn't have played it in that way that he did because he knew that the only chance he had to win that round was to go for it then and there. I think a lot of players would have backed up, maybe tried to play slow for a kill, but he executed the stars absolutely aligned, Austin.
Yeah, that whole round, I've had to rewatch it a couple times just to make sure it actually did happen the way it did because the round really came down to Dashi and Envoy, which a lot of people aren't bringing up. But, Envoy makes that huge misplay pushing the lane. Everyone saw it. Everyone knows it. I'm not going to, brag on him. What he should have probably done was you could still push that lane, just sit into the corner that hugs the wall, where it's a little bit of that fencing next to the bush. And then you can trade anybody. Let's say accuracy started shooting from pillars, or when he threw the nade at Formal, then you could swing out and try to get that trade. So that probably would have been the better play. I think he just got antsy and said, I probably have to make a play to finish the round. And then after that, Scump makes a terrific read on the guy coming up Eskies. But if you watch just before that, Dashi backs up into the same corner as him. And I was just like, why? What are you doing? Why back up into your teammate like that? Because that's really what, kind of screwed them when accuracy... accuracy wasn't making a play on Scump and Dashi. He was making a play on Formal because he got him weak with the nade and just got absolutely blessed with hitting Scump with just 1 bullet So it was just a really it's unlucky, but you make it you made it unlucky by making those incorrect plays, and you just allowed accuracy to do that. So even though it is unlucky, but it's just two huge misplays that you allowed to manifest that. So they'll definitely rewatch that and fix their errors. But I hated the way that Dashi actually played that more than Envoy, because you're just lining yourself up with your teammate in one of the more hard corners to fight out of.
Yeah, the blame couldn't really be on Scump or Formal, because Formal was just trying to play his life after he got naded, and then Scump was playing for that kill Eskies, and then I still don't understand why Dashi went in that corner. Like, you could go anywhere else. You could push Eskies out after you get the kill, and
They
then
knew where he was
play
as
the
well.
other-
That's the thing.
Yeah,
knew
and then
exactly
play
where
the
he
other
was.
side. And then, there must have been some miscommunication or something going on, because that was very strange. Did you watch, like, the Hitches video? Like, there was no
Yeah.
comms. There was, like, no comms, and then suddenly they're all dead, and they're like, what? It's like, dude, like, sorry,
Like, the weird
as an
thing
OpTic
is-
fan, it's, oh,
That was but that was like that was a heartbreaking loss, man. It really was. For the OpTic guys. I mean, yeah, like that's the thing with Dashi. Like, I don't even think he was weak. That's the thing that confuses
wasn't.
me. Like, he put himself in that corner where he doesn't want to shoot because he doesn't want to kill Formal. But like, you know, he was the guy that he had the health to like head glitch bomb or do something so that the other guys could trade it.
The,
But,
the second accuracy through the nade from that lane, he should have instantly slid on the bomb and used that as a head glitch. I don't know why in any world that nade gets thrown and then he just sits in the corner like that, unless they were just overthinking it and not calming, which it makes it sound like that's what happened. So
yeah,
this is a huge misplay. Gigantic misplay.
yeah, unbelievable scenes, to be honest. But OpTic go out. I mean, top 6, not the result they're looking for. They're obviously looking to bounce back here. I don't think changes are on the cards or anything. I think they're a team that certainly has it within them to make a run, but they just need to find ways to close out this series. I mean, we talked about this Rokkr team. They're not a team you want to go to a game 5 with. Certainly, they'll often find a way across the line, but at the same time, I mean, that this defeat for OpTic, not even making the Sunday. I mean, they make the changes right to the format so that 4 teams make Sunday, and OpTic still can't make it. So, you know, I imagine they'll bounce back, but this league is just so competitive right now, insanely competitive, that I think they really have to look themselves in the mirror and think like, okay, what type of team do we want to be? Do we want to be a good team that's going to get top 4s? Or do we want to actually compete for championships? And what does that mean for how much work we're going to have to put into our practice and our behind the scenes prep and this type of stuff? That's just my take on the matter.
I think you're talking about Rokkr or OpTic?
I'm talking about OpTic.
Yeah. Go ahead, Austin.
OpTic do a lot of work behind the scenes. I know they're putting in the effort, so it's kind of, I feel like they're just not confident and they're overthinking things. Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but it just looks like they're not playing the game the way they want to play it. It's like they're overthinking it, kind of.
I would somewhat agree with that, but I also feel like there is some sort of miscommunication behind the scenes as well. Maybe it's hard to say. I don't really like speculating on OpTic because there's going to be so many opinions about them. So in the end, I think they just need to have a series where they completely dominate a top team to get that confidence back within all their different matches. So I don't know. Just comes with confidence.
And that's the thing, they did, like, you'd imagine it happened, right? They beat Dallas 3-2. Scump goes mental last couple of maps. Like, he turns back up. You're thinking, all right, they're going to fly into this major. They're going to come in, smoke Ultra, give FaZe a good run. And, it kind of just doesn't work out like that. I mean, the 2 teams they lost to were Ultra and Rokkr, which, they're teams you certainly can lose to, but they're not, it's not FaZe, right? They didn't get the chance to play them. So,
one thing?
Absolutely.
This might be a bad take, but I don't really like when OpTic get overconfident after winning one series and like talk themselves up, make themselves like build themselves up to be like this super team again, and then go into the major and lose. It's like, yeah, they should kind of sit more on an even keel and just kind of focus on themselves rather than project how good they are at times. And so I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. Anyway.
I think I get where you're coming from to a degree. It's
just like when Scum had one good series. Scum had one good series, and it's like, oh, I'm back. It's like, no. Give it a whole stage, and then I'll be convinced you're back.
Spotlight's always
I'm
on.
gonna catch hands for that comment, but whatever.
Consistency is key, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to make a big run at these majors, man. And well, a team that did make a big run was Ultra. Let's talk about Rokkr firstly, because they lose this insane series to Dallas Empire. I mean, we're talking about misplays. We've got to at least touch on that 0.1 second control round where it looks like it's all over for Dallas. For some reason, they decide to all flood and shell open stairs. And I watched Attach's video. He was kind of breaking it down, and he was saying that like all Priest has to do there is not shell open stairs, and accuracy first of all should just go into Tiki and just play his life in that sense. But all they've got to do is kill Shotzi, because he's the only man who can get there with like 0.1 to go. And if someone's just sitting in money window, could just kill him as soon as he gets to the point. It's GG, well played. But somehow Dallas win that round. They win the map I mean, this is just classic Dallas, somehow clutching up on raid controls. They still lose the hard point, though. And then they go to Assertion Destroy, and Priest and Leader attach in the back in some weird fashion that we kind of saw didn't really look like it did in theatre to real life, you could say. So, I don't know. Empire, I don't understand how they keep clutching up these round 11s. They are scraping through by the skin of their teeth. But Rokkr seem capable of basically taking anyone to a game 5 right now, and it makes the league incredibly interesting. Like Rokkr, their last how many of their series in a row went to game 5? Because it happened against OpTic, it happened against Empire, and then before that they went against Seattle to a game 5, and then before that I think they went to Empire again to a game 5 or something like that. They've just done so many game 5s in a row, Austin, that I don't even know, man. This team's just so interesting. So much improved with Standy though. They're so much fun to watch.
Yeah, they're definitely fun to watch. They just have to find, like, going to so many game 5s is kind of concerning, just because it means you're being tested each series. So I think they grew a lot at the tail end of this stage, and they're definitely going to be one of those teams that are battling out for top 4 in stage 3. They definitely have to find us a little bit more consistency between their ARs and play a little bit sounder. And I think it was hardpoint. I think it was either hardpoint or control. They just need to play a little bit more sound as a unit, and I think they'll be one of the more dangerous teams in the CDL.
What's good, Lion? Oh, he's on mute.
I'm on mute. I don't really have much to add about the Rokkr. I think Standy's been amazing. Priest has been the only one to me that hasn't really reached his potential yet. Accuracy still has the ice.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, for me, I need to see more from this team. I know we watched a lot of them in stage 2, but I just not convinced they're like right at the peak yet or in the top 3. So yeah, I have not much to add on.
I want to see him
Rokkr,
beat like a good team 3-1. That's what I want to see him do. I want him to come out against a solid team. Like, I mean, I guess an Ultra would work. And of course, they lost 3-1 to Ultra here in the loser semis, but like, I want to see Rokkr come out against a top 4 team, like, an OpTic. I mean, they played obviously a couple of them here in the Dallas Empire and such, but come in, win a 3-1, take a couple of hard points, and that's when I'll fully be convinced that this team can win a championship. Because the problem is for this squad is that with all the promise that they show, they either win in a game 5 or they find a way to lose in a game 5, and you can't win a tournament just winning game 5s. I mean, you can, but it's not going to happen. So on the balance of probabilities. So with the Rokkr out the way, we then talk about the team that came 3rd in the tourney, that being Dallas Empire. And it's a really interesting one because they don't even look that good. Like, when you see them play, it's kind of like they're somewhat underwhelming. They don't seem 100% on the same page at all times. Shotzi had a really big turnaround stage for him. I think he played phenomenally, like he's really getting there. But Hook, who early part of the season we were saying, okay, this guy's the best player in the game, is now, I think he had a very suboptimal stage. Illy hasn't been doing anything spectacular. Krim has actually had his moments. But I'm pretty sure this team is like 6-0 or something crazy in their round 11s, or maybe even 7-0. I thought I saw a stat from round 11 stats, but yeah, 7-0 in their round 11s. If they lose like half of those, let's just say hypothetically, their record this season looks like so much different to what it does. And I think a lot of these tourneys look very different. So you can look at this team, Austin, and say, wow, okay, stage 1 they came 2nd, stage 3 they came 3rd, or stage 2 they came 3rd. But I think that doesn't really tell the whole story of to where this team, given they're the world champions, is, while still very competitive, they haven't quite put it all together yet to actually feel to me like they could win a championship. Because even if they got to the finals here, I never really felt like they were getting past FaZe.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have probably the most potential out of any team in the league that hasn't shown like that potential yet, if you know what I mean. Like they have so much talent that is obviously there from last season and it's just not clicking yet. And I wonder if it's map pool or just roles. I almost feel like Illy has been sometimes he plays phenomenally and sometimes he's like really just on the back burner with his team. So I really don't know what is wrong, but the weirdest thing to me is like their S&D was really weak in the beginning of the stage. But a really, really, really big positive note was it was phenomenal to end the stage. Crimsix had a 1.4 at the major, Hook had a 1.2, and Shotzi had a 1.1. So I think this is one of those teams that they're just going to continue to get better and better and better, hopefully, throughout the year. And by the end of it, I do suspect that they're going to be one of those teams that is at the top level of the CDL and S&D.
You're on mute again, Lion.
Yeah.
Every time. Do you think, just to bring it back to LAN again, that this team will be better or worse? Because last year they were definitely better online, and they ended up winning 3 tournaments online and only 1 on LAN. What do you reckon their chances are?
It'll be a wash. I don't think they'll get any worse. I don't think they'll get like extraordinarily better. I mean, they'll continue. I think they'll continue to be like at the same level they're at. I don't think LAN will. Some people will think it will make them worse, but I mean, you got Hook and Krim, and you know, Ailey's been around for a while, and Shotzi's won tournaments on LAN at Halo. He's a world champion, so everyone will like to point out that they did bad last season, but
they won the last event.
Yeah, bad for them was second place to Chicago and winning an event. So yeah,
not too bad, but I think that's a good point. Like, it is interesting to keep your eyes on how that goes. I think that last season, a lot of the discussion was that like where they were based geographically gave them a degree of advantage, whereas this season, a lot of the teams are all based in Texas, to the point where this whole like onliner Dallas onliners, you know, they've got the best routers in the league discussion probably doesn't hold quite as much weight because pretty much all the teams are in the same spot. So then it really becomes a question of do these guys fold under the pressure of a LAN environment, which, you know, I'm sure there's going to be an adjustment period for a number of these players again, but we still have to have the question answered. You know, how many fans are we going to have? Is it going to be full capacity? Probably the first event back, you're not going to have 10,000 Greenwall fans shouting down your neck, would be my guess. So there actually might be quite a nice, or even just not at all. So there's probably quite a nice adjustment period back to LAN for a number of these players that, okay, you're playing on LAN, but there's no crowd there. And then slowly maybe the crowd starts coming back event by event, and maybe you can ease into it a little bit more. So it's interesting. Let's talk grand finals. So we haven't really got into the Ultra yet, but wow, what an unbelievable tournament they just had here. FaZe, of course, come through winners. They take down Ultra 3-1 in a close series. I mean, especially this final map here. It was a checkmate hardpoint again, Austin. I think it was a close one. Like, Sim made a crazy play right at the end to win it. Or like he got a big kill. I don't know, maybe I'm confusing series, but it was interesting at least. Ultra fought FaZe very close, but FaZe got out of it, and you're thinking, okay, expected. They then get through the Empire 3-1, and then Ultra start this losers bracket run from hell, where they take down Thieves, and then they go into Sunday, beat Rokkr, which is a very impressive victory in and of itself. Like, beating them 3-1 is impressive, given that pretty much everyone has to go to Game 5 to get past them, if they are going to get past them. Then they beat Empire 3-1, and Empire even came out here and won the first map, and Ultra just reeled off 3 straight, all on Raid. I think, Raid on anything, this team is just so strong. And then they go to the grand finals, where all the cylinders were firing, and this was an unbelievable grand finals. We can talk about the advantage thing in a second, and the fact that FaZe come through winners and don't even get a 1-0. At the same time, you know, you can talk about the fact that Ultra was super hot coming through losers, but FaZe did win the first map on Garrison Hardpoint. But, you know, that question aside, Ultra absolutely deserved this victory. They played unbelievable Call of Duty. This change that Marky B and the guys made to take out methods and bring in insight is working, well, phenomenally clearly, even though initially it looked like a lateral move, maybe it's helped them get some more production out of Bance in the long term, because Bance's turnaround was incredibly key for this team. We've been talking about it. We said it last week on the show, Austin. The CleanX is unbelievably good. When he's on form, this guy is one of the best SMG talents in the league, and we saw that this weekend on a pretty consistent level. You know, I mean, Bance also deserves an incredible amount of props, like to drop a 1.44 KD in the grand finals against FaZe and to drastically improve his play from the first part of the stage is just an unbelievable showing. Cammy did his thing as well. I mean, he's been one of the takeover players, but he was phenomenal. And it's just incredible. Like, they played such good COD in terms of the preparation they had for all the teams, in terms of the way they executed. And it was almost surprising to me the fact that they played like such a high level of Call of Duty, and FaZe didn't seem spectacular, like super on your guys' day. And still, you were a very tough team to get past. Like, it takes this level of COD to get past FaZe, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bance was the major reason why they went on that run. If you look at it statistically, the other three players played at the same level as they were during the group stages. The only bump, actually, at all, the only bump they had in individual performances was Bance, who went from a 0.97 in group stages to a 1.11 at the major. He was their highest KD leader. He had the second highest on the team for hard point and S&D, and he led the team in control. So he was also going just as fast as any of the SMGs in the league. So him playing at the level he did was honestly amazing. Definitely rose his stock a ton. He was definitely the MVP of the stage by far for me. So it was definitely one of those days where you just catch fire and just you win 3 straight series. So it was awesome for them.
Yeah, it's crazy that he went from being arguably the problem with that team to being the reason why they won an event. And it's crazy because he brought back his form, it seems like, from Black Ops 3, just that complete dominant, not really worried about any scenario, just kind of playing his role perfectly. CleanX also brought back his ridiculous ability to just like slide cants around corners and destroy everyone. I don't know how he does it, but he does it so clean. Like that was at bottom pulls, like that beautiful 2-piece. We already got a 3-piece outside.
That was a 7 streak right there. It's insane.
Yeah, that guy. He for some reason he can just catch fire and just dominate for like the 20-second period and kill everyone twice. And then Insight, obviously amazing. KD wise, he's been amazing, but in what was the game mode Control, he's just been a little bit lacking. But S&D and Hardpoint, he's been amazing. And then 1 second. And then Cammy's been just the same pretty much. I think he's probably been their most consistent player all year. And then to have all these other players coming together and like all of them catching fire at the same time, it just was a perfect storm for them to win.
I think that's fair. I mean, one of the other key storylines is their search and destroy. I don't know if they lost a search on the weekends, Austin, or if they were like 6-0 or something in their search or something insane like that. And I think that really was the story of the grand finals here, because they come in against FaZe and we discussed it. Like, I don't know what team could beat FaZe in a best of 9 with 4 search and destroys in there based on how you guys were looking in search in stage 1. And I'm sure Ultra and the other teams like super heavy prepped for what you guys were bringing to the table in search. I'm sure that's something you guys are thinking about, because we talked last week. I was like, all right, what team could potentially put up a challenge to FaZe in search and destroy in a grand finals? And I was saying, okay, maybe Rokkr have a shot in that sense. But it was actually Ultra who were by far the strongest search and destroy team of the weekend. They, I mean, Bads goes 10-0 on Express. And that Express map, I'm sure you guys are thinking about, right? Because 6-0'd by LAG on that map, 6-0 in the grand finals by Ultra. Obviously, you don't have too much choice in terms of what vetoes happen in a best of 9. But yeah, I think S&D's a pretty big question mark for you guys going forwards, because if your search and destroy was at like a mediocre level here, you probably still find a way to get over the line in this grand finals.
Yeah, I mean, we would have been fine if, honestly, the controls, like the checkmate control and the raid control, we were like 9-0 versus Toronto in that, and like I just don't know. We just weren't. It was just an off day, and it sucks that coming from the winners bracket, you're not allowed to have a off series period. So like it was just one of those days where it was just like just weren't there, and Toronto were just literally catching everything on fire. So the S&Ds, I can tell you right now, I can promise you, it was like one of those things where your S&D is at such a high level, and you focus on your respawns, and everyone else is grinding very hard for S&Ds, and then kind of slip up on that. So I can tell you right now, going into stage 3, our S&D will not look remotely anywhere near what it was, because our first bloods, I'm gonna look at it real quick, were just horrific if you look at it from that way. I think what are we, -7, 8? We were -14 across the stage for first bloods, and I know on defense, like on Express, I can't say the word, but on Express defenses, we were almost just playing 3v4. So that will not be the level of S&D that we will be playing next stage. But positive note, our respawns were really great before that. So it's just about finding balance, because you see it in a lot of teams. You work on one mode like really hard, it falters in the other. So it's just about finding consistency across all three, and hope you don't drop too much form like we just did. Because I think we went from number 1 in S&D to number 12, which
That's
Whoa,
insane.
really?
That's
we
insane.
had the worst. We had the worst win percentage in
Wow.
stage 2. So that was I almost had a heart attack watching us play. It really hurt watching us play. It was so tough.
Yeah, I can
That's
imagine.
just-
And
God,
I was
like-
going to touch on the fact that, just because we've touched on this before, that you guys definitely should have had a 1-0 lead going into that series, and which meant that you would have been up 2-0, which would have maybe been the dagger for Toronto to be down 2-0 at the start of a grand final. So I don't know, if you'd been given the opportunity and they didn't, and you had to play twice on Sunday rather than just once, I think that you probably still take out the major despite having that S&D disadvantage.
Yeah, I said it before the major started.
You
And see,
all
like the
did.
problem is like I don't want to sound salty, because like we still lost 5 maps, and we should never
Yeah.
lose 5 maps to anybody on this planet. Our guys know that, and like Toronto rightfully deserved to win that series, clear cut, no doubt about it. But like the schedule change for that Sunday was horrid. It was like really, it was favoring the losers brackets team, because it allows you to come in hot, and it sucks, but it doesn't matter, because we're supposed to still be hot going in. So there's really no excuses. Even with a 1-0, I think we would have lost technically, because they still won 5 maps when they won 3. So it sucks. The format, obviously in next major, if we come out and win, then I'll just rag on it really hard. But I can't really do that, because it just will come off as salty. But
I
yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree. It's interesting. It just does amaze me how hard it is to get past FaZe. Actually, the other thing I was going to say is that from the viewer standpoint, I actually thought, now from the competitive standpoint, I completely agree that having the winners final on the Sunday is probably the best way to do it. But this was so much of a better viewing experience, because last Sunday at the major, almost every map that was played that day was Atlanta versus Dallas, right? It was FaZe Dallas in the winners finals 3-0. Then Dallas went down to New York and just blitzed them out 3-0. And then we went into that 7-map grand final where you guys won 5-2. This time it was much more interesting to watch from a spectator point, right? You've got, okay, can Ultra make the run? Okay, if let's say Rokkr won, can they make the run, the rematch? It makes it a lot more interesting. And then you've kind of got like the final boss comes in at the end of the day. So they're two sides of things, but I see where the CDL are coming from. At the same time, it's like, yeah, even I'm looking at your guys being the worst S&D team in the league, technically in stage 2, and still sitting here in the grand finals from the winners bracket. It's just insane how tough you guys are to get past, and the level of COD that Toronto had to play to do it. And this stage is going to be ridiculous. I want to throw it to you, Austin, for some initial thoughts here, because so we've got FaZe, who I'd probably still put, number 1 team, S tier team. Then you've got Ultra probably right behind them. If I had to have FaZe Ultra play a matchup again today, I'd probably say FaZe are favourites. But I mean, obviously Ultra play phenomenally. And then you've got Ultra like immediately right up there within the top dogs. Then we've got Dallas Empire, right? Always going to be competitive. Then we've got Minnesota Rokkr improving. Then we've got OpTic. They're not going anywhere. Thieves are getting a lot better. Subliners are making a change and looking to improve. Seattle are on the rise. Other teams that have been falling off, such as Florida and Paris, they're making changes, looking to improve. We talked about their changes could be a step in the right direction. And, then you've got some other teams, LAG, Paris, for example, or LAG London, that have upset potential. So I don't even know what's going on anymore. How is it even possible to call these groups, whatever they happen to be? We'll talk about them in the next episode, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really tough, just because so many teams are obviously making changes to either their teams or their roles. So it's going to be really tough to call any matches for the first week, but it's definitely going to be a bloodbath in the middle of the pack. I think anywhere from like 4 to 10 is going to be so close, and it's just really going to come down to play styles and how they match up with one another. And honestly, the 2-3-5 modes are what teams that have a lot of chemistry are going to be good at. So whoever builds that out faster is going to start rising to the top real quick.
Thoughts, line?
Yeah, I think the league is just getting more and more stacked as we go. And so it's going to be harder and harder to predict. It's going to be tougher for the players, and it's going to be more important to be on the same page with your teammates. What I was going to say is that even though the league is getting more stacked, I feel like we will definitely start to see trends, though, with teams not being good that we expect to be good, and maybe teams like Dallas maybe dropping to like 7, or like just strange things I think are going to happen this stage, and it should be a lot more exciting than the previous stages because of the competitive nature of stage 3, I feel.
It's going to be, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. Like, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. And that's the thing. You look at this major and it's like, all right, a lot of the bracket is predictable and makes sense apart from this crazy ultra run. But then coming into this stage, it feels like it's not just going to be the bracket of the major that's going to be insane, but also the group play leading up to it. I mean, last, of course, we did have that crazy group B where it was like 3-2, 3-2, 3-2, 2-3, 2-3, 2-3. But I'm sure we can expect something similar this time around. Before we finish the episode, we've got to touch on this LAN stuff. So yesterday, it was the big news of the town, or 2 days ago from when you guys are listening to this, if you're watching on release. Initially it was OpTic and the other CDL teams talking about back to LAN, all this type of stuff. The CDL then came out earlier today and did a statement. I mean, I guess I can find it and read it for you guys real quick. So we're like up to the minute here on the Breaking Point podcast. But they effectively say, we're going back to LAN in coordination with our teams. We are happy to announce Call of Duty League plans for teams to return to LAN play at select events later this season. More details to come. So, at select events, we're thinking... To me, Austin, the timing is interesting in the sense that they're announcing it now before Stage 3, but yet there's no date. You'd imagine if it was the Stage 3 major, they would have at least said something about it. But then again, if there's no spectators, then, maybe you don't necessarily need to announce it. It's a weird one. On the whole, it's obviously a great thing. It's great we're getting back to LAN. I'm really looking forward to it. There's a lot of discussion about who's going to get exposed, which, may or may not be the case, right, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to see what they do, just because COVID obviously it's in an interesting spot in the U.S. And with the vaccines, I think they're still going to have to wait a while for any spectators or anything like that. I mean, even sporting events, I know around me it's only 15% capacity, so I don't expect that. I think with LANs, I think what players who are going to get, what they're saying, exposed is going to be like the time to kill difference that you see on LAN. A lot of times it feels like your health is at like 50%, a lot of people say. So you're not allowed, you can't make the same ego challenges and just sending it plays that you can make online. You're going to get exposed that way, I think. You're going to need like a very good comms and chemistry with your teammates to play very well. So I think if we do return to LAN this year, I think that's where you're going to see some of the nerves crop up. And I think in like next year, if we have LANs with fans, that's when you'll see like that next wave of like nerves pop up because of the fans. So it'll be interesting. I honestly have no clue when the LANs are coming back. It's interesting how they said LANs. So I'm hoping
events.
Events. So it means at least 2. So it'll be interesting. I hope it. I just can't wait for it to come back because the LAN environment is so fun to be around.
Yeah, at the moment they just seem to be teasing it, just like making it a thing slowly, and then eventually they'll be like, "We're back." So I expect it's probably going to be at the very least Stage 5 playoffs and champs, hopefully Stage 4 playoffs. But I assume they're going to keep the online league aspect and then have playoffs for LAN, and I think that's probably the smartest option. But the problem is that if they do this type of bubble thing, it's going to cost them so many millions of dollars just to get it to run smoothly. And if it doesn't run smoothly the first time, I doubt champs will be on LAN after that. So they got to get it right the first time if they really want it to go through. So I hope it goes well, and hope they don't go bankrupt because of it.
I certainly hope that they can get like one event at least before champs. Like I think that would be a
test run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A test run, and also it'd be a massive turnout, right? Like some of these guys just, massive turnout for the book. Some of these guys just, rocking up to champs, their first ever LAN, and it's bloody champs, baby. Like there's a lot of cash in there. It could be kind of insane. So
that would be dope.
That would be dope. If we can get stage 4 and 5, that would be also good on the major side. Final thing for the episode. Currently, there are 12 teams in the CDL, and 8 of them are getting to the World Championship that we just touched on. Hopefully that'll be on LAN. The 4 teams right now that are in the bottom 4 are Mutineers, Paris Legion, Seattle Surge, and the London Royal Ravens. Come the end of the season, which 4 teams do you think are going to be down there? I'll lead off. I think it's going to be Ravens. I think it's going to be LAG. I think it's probably going to be Paris. And then, am I just saying the bottom 4? I'm actually not quite. I'm saying I think I'm going to keep Florida down there as well. So I'm going to say Surge make it out, but I think that currently as it stands, it's kind of on the right track. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts.
I'll let you go first, line.
Yeah, I think LAG, Paris, Seattle, London. I think Florida find form and make it out, just because I have so much faith in Awakening. And that's really it.
So I'm really tough too, because honestly, I think Awakening is one of the best players in the entire CDL. Yep. So I think they just have to find a way to build around him. I think, it's so hard because there's probably going to be so many waves of roster changes.
Yeah, true.
So I think London and Paris and probably LAG are kind of like the locks, not locks, but probably the most highest percentage to be down there, especially with how they perform like points wise right now. I'll say I think Seattle, Florida, and I think the Thieves will probably battle it out for that final spot being eliminated. I think Toronto before this past major could have been a candidate for that, but they performed so well at this past major that they're now in 5th and they're kind of comfortable. So I think LA has to continue to have a good stage, make sure they're not in there, and then it will probably be between Florida and Seattle to make it the champs.
I think that's about right. It's going to be chaos. We'll probably be doing this in 2 stages time, and things look very different. And Ravens will be top of the league, baby. Up the lads.
Yeah, that's them.
Anyway, thanks for joining me again, lads. Thanks all for listening at home. Really appreciate you guys. Spotify, YouTube, all the platforms. Leave us a like, leave us a follow, all that good stuff. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. 2,300 subs, something in that ballpark. We're killing it.
2.4.
And 2.4, oh baby, we're to the moon. So yeah. Glad you guys are enjoying the content. Let us know feedback, thoughts in the comment section below as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.